I love VQs, Ryan. Straight piped VQs, by the way.
Yeah, I think that's my favorite sound on earth.
We are obviously talking to Jim Xiong today. It has been a long time since I've seen that dude. He's living in Sacramento right now, making his own way. But I'll tell you what, I'm excited to do it. And, of course, folks are listening/watching Clutch Kick Radio. Welcome to Clutch Kick Radio with Ryan Lechner. What is happening, my man?
Not much. How's it going, Andy?
Going pretty good, dude. Going pretty good. It's a sunny day, finally.
It is. It's nice. Nice weather out. It's definitely, I've been outside every day that it's sunny for sure, because it's definitely been nice out. And why not go out and enjoy the sun, right?
There's not a reason to not to, because, I mean, it's been raining. It was pretty mild. I feel like it was a mild winter, but now, I don't know. It's time to start getting nice. I know you and I have had that conversation about Drift Lube, but nothing really beats the good days.
No. I'll tell you what. I enjoy going out to park on a sunny day, even as a spectator. There's nothing like watching drifting. I mean, come on. You go out there, tires screeching, loud engine noises, all that. Hopefully people not hitting but hitting. I mean, I'm not going to say I enjoy it, but come on. Everyone loves a little carnage here and there. Let's be real.
That's right. Some bumper cars. That's why you watch NASCAR, right?
Well, yeah, right. Everyone just watches till the end. They want to watch the burnouts and the crashes and all that, right?
Oh, and drifting brings the best, which is the burnouts.
Exactly.
That's the main event.
Yep, and definitely FD. You're always seeing crashes. It's always a yard sale.
And of course, one of our favorite people who is really making his way these days, Jim Xiong. Down in California right now, the mecca, or used to be the mecca of the automotive scene for especially drifting and JDM cars.
Oh, I think it still is. I mean, I know the East Coast is doing huge things out there, but I think California still has it pretty locked down on drifting as far as, this side of the world goes.
I'm sure they do, but all of their EPA regulations and carb certifications and everything is like, ugh.
Yeah, I know. I feel like it's getting harder and harder, and it's only going to get worse from here, but can it get worse? Can they? I mean, I guess they can just shut everything down, right? Completely, but
I don't know.
Will they actually do that?
One of these days, we're probably going to start seeing sex toys with carb certifications on them. So that's when you'll know that it's gone too far.
Know how much emissions they put off?
That's right.
Start comparing it to a Prius.
Well, Jim should be calling us any minute now, and I'm pretty excited to talk to him because it has been a hot minute. What is your favorite Jim Xiong memory from the last decade?
Yeah, he's going to hate me for this, but I'm pretty sure it was when I used to flag at park, and not only I didn't love it, but I would literally watch him take off from the start line, and as he's going down the line, you can literally see people like almost in a wave, like they're making a wave, but they're covering their ears. They're not lifting their hands. And it's just as the VQ goes by, they're just, oh, come on, stop.
Yeah.
And let's be real, back then, no one even really knew what it was. No one was really into 350Zs much at that time, so there was just an immense amount of hate towards that thing.
Yeah.
And all the noises it made.
Well, the hate came from pain.
Well, yes. Yeah. I mean, bleeding of the ears. It's
that A86 that they swapped a VQ into, that thing was a monstrosity. I mean, let's be realistic. There really isn't anything wrong with, the VQ motor. So he's calling into Skype right now, producer Nick. You picking that up? All right, we're getting that covered. There really isn't anything wrong with that VQ motor. It's just the sound. I mean, the power is good. The power output is good. Everything about it. I mean, is there really anything you can hate on about the VQ motor?
No.
Jim, how are you doing? Doing fantastic, buddy. Oh, let's get your audio up here a little bit. There we go. Yeah, we were just talking about your VQ swapped AE86, man.
Can you hear him?
Actually that bad. The one that was loud was R32 with the VQ in there. Ooh. And that one was straight pipe, so that one was super loud. I remember there's some pictures from park, and as I drive by, you can see people just plugging in there.
Yeah,
We were just talking about that.
You just missed that. I was literally just telling that story. I was like, he's gonna hate me for this, but that was one of the memories I remember flagging you, and
Yeah.
people would just be, as you're going by, they'd just be covering their ears like, oh, come on.
Exactly. Yeah.
But as I was pointed out, Jim, that thing ripped, and really, those motors are a lot of good things happening there, right?
Yes, definitely. I mean, they pack a bunch of torque down low. I mean, with the VQ86, all we did was we went first, second, third, and just drifted the whole track in third. So you never had a downshift, and that made it a lot easier to drift. I mean, when I first met you guys was actually Hoodoo.
Oh yeah,
Right.
That's what, yeah, Hoodoo days. I mean, that was like, I don't know, 2010, 11 or
Yeah,
something
10
like
or
that.
11, I think.
Yeah, and before that, I already had a VQ 240SX hatch, and I drove it for maybe about 2 years before the oil, consumption and everything. It started eating through the rings and everything. But yeah, I mean, it was a blast. I mean, I did everything with it. I drag raced it, I drifted it, and then the Corolla, we did the same thing too. With the Corolla, it actually did like a low 12-second 12-second run down the quarter mile. So that was pretty good for back in the days.
Why did
No
you guys
kidding.
decide to use the Corolla? Like, why did you take the motor from the S13 and go into the Corolla?
Well, actually, that was a whole different motor. The one in the 240 was what was it? The Rev Up.
Oh, okay.
And then the one in the Corolla was just the regular DE. So
Okay.
we had two different cars, but at the time, the motor from the 240 was starting to consume a lot of oil, so we decided to just take it apart and tear it apart. And then we built the Corolla on the side. And the Corolla, we actually built that thing with SV Performance, Oscar. We built that thing in like 4 weeks from scratch.
Yeah, I remember that thing came out of nowhere. I had never even
Yeah.
heard of that car, and then you guys just show up to Hoodoo and we're like, what is this thing?
Yeah, that thing was a blast out there. I mean, even still back then, we were just barely getting into like drifting and starting to learn about suspension. That's kind of when steering knuckle and modification was getting very popular. So we
Yeah.
made our own arms and we made our own knuckles and everything. And they worked for what they were back then.
Yeah, I remember there was lots of trial and error with that, and I think that when you guys came out with the Corolla, I think it was you guys were the only one, I think, at Hoodoo with an actual angle kit or
Yeah.
any kind of like modded knuckles at all, I think, at that point in time.
Yep, I believe so. I mean, it was a fun time, definitely. And then after that, I was watching you guys podcast, and you guys are talking about how Park began and everything too. And we were lucky enough to get invited there, and I think that's kind of what sparked the whole drifting at Park.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I don't see how you'd make your way around Pat's Acres without an angle kit in third gear. That's just crazy to me.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean,
Yeah.
now an angle kit is a must.
Oh yeah, it's funny to think back like how it was like that, just no angle kits, like 200 to 250 horse, like that's all you needed, and we were just going ham, like we thought it was the best thing ever, but come to find out,
Oh yeah.
that
Jim,
was just the
Yeah,
tip of the
definitely.
iceberg.
Jim, I can make some assumptions about why you went with the VQ, but can you kind of walk us through the thought process?
Well, okay, so like I said, this is funny so I'm gonna give you the little backstory on how I met Oscar. So I was driving through Portland, and Oscar pulls up out of nowhere. I don't know the guy, and he goes, "Hey, you want to go drifting?" He had a Mark II Super back then with the JZ in it. I was like, "All right, sure."
Yep.
Sorry,
So
I
then,
I love that car. I totally forgot about that. I love that car.
Yeah. So, I mean, Oscar, he's a hard worker. He kind of tries to put his customers before him. So that's why Oscar's been out of the game for a while. But anyways, we go drifting that night, and the dude's just a maniac on the back tollgate roads. And then he's like, "Hey, you know what? I got a VQ laying around. Why don't we do a VQ swap in your 240? I had an SR in there, a stock SR." I was all like, I don't know. Like, I just barely met you. I don't know you. I don't know if you're capable, because I mean, VQs back in 2007, nobody's done it. There was probably 2 people, and there was one down in SoCal, and then another guy that worked at Nissan in North Carolina. So Oscar's like, don't worry, I got this. So I was like, okay. So I sold all my SR, sold the whole swap, and we started working on it in my driveway. And then we got it all in. It wouldn't crank. It wouldn't start. We took it to Nissan dealership several times to get the computer reflashed, because this is before like UpRev, Osiris. So you couldn't just take out the anti-theft. You had to run the key with the little antenna on it, and we couldn't figure it out. And then Oscar goes, "Hey, did you put on the flywheel correctly?" I was like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "Well, there's a certain position you got to put it in there, because it has a what do you call it, crank trigger." I was like, "I don't know. I just put it on like you would in a Honda or SR."
That'd be
like,
me
oh
too.
gosh! So we were fighting this for like 4 months. The reason why it wouldn't start. So then he's all like, "Go take it back off, and then you'll see there's a little like dowel or alignment pin, whatever, or hole there." So went there, switched it on, and boom, fire right up.
Man, I've never heard of that indent being on anything but the crank nose.
Right?
Oh, yeah. So it was like, I didn't know. I mean, Oscar was way ahead of the game before anybody. So that's why I had the big old sign on the side of my door that said first VQ swap in the Northwest.
I'd forgotten about that. Yeah. And I mean, those VQs.
Oscar.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oscar still probably has the door, because we took the door skin off after we retired that chassis. So he still probably has the door skin hanging around somewhere.
We
That's
gotta
awesome.
find that.
I know, right? We gotta find that and go get a picture of it.
So what was that VQ making when you guys were working them up? Was it like, I don't know, 320, 330?
Oh, not even close. Like when I had it, it was so we actually dynoed the VQ 240 back when PRE was still at their old spot, and it made 297. But I had posted that on YouTube, and everybody was giving me crap for it. They're like, "Oh no, there's no way it makes that much, blah blah blah." Like everybody makes like 260, 270. I was like, maybe their dyno reads high. I don't know. It's just the number I got, you know. And everybody is kind of infatuated with numbers, you know, and that doesn't really matter.
Right?
Well, not in drifting these days. I mean, don't get me wrong, a 200 horsepower car is not going to do the same as a 500 horse. But when it comes to drifting, if you've got a, like you had an A86 with just about 300 horsepower at the tire, and you're ripping on these 500 horsepower, you know, who knows what, I don't know, you know, Kuki or Zenki S14s, it's a lot of power to weight, and it's a lot of setup, right?
Right. It was definitely fun. I mean, now that we have access to like stickier tires, I wish we would have had that back then. Back then, we just ran whatever we could find. I mean, whether we buy brand new, but we're on a budget, so you know, we buy like $70 tires or whatever, and you know, who cares what the tread wear was on it? We just bought it. We had to run, or we just go to. We used to go to a Toyota dealership in the back, where they threw all their tires away, and we go back there and just buy them for like $5 a piece.
Yep, we used to have a couple dealerships that would do that too. There's like a couple dealerships and a couple tire shops. They'd be like, "Yeah, come take whatever from our trash pile," because they had to pay like $2 a tire or whatever to get rid of it. So if we took it, then it wasn't their problem anymore. Yeah,
exactly. So that's kind of what we did. I mean, if we knew back then, I mean, we're talking about 2011, so it's just whatever we could find, we ran. Even in 2012, when I decided to participate into the Formula D Pro-Am series, it's we never really ran the same tires, just kind of what we could get our hands on. Obviously, they're brand new, but just whatever we could get our hands on. So it was like you're never really consistent. We couldn't really afford, you know, the Falcons that other guys are running too. So it's just we were running like, I don't know, some other company like Black Lines and Lionheart or whatever they were. I mean,
whatever you could find.
Just try to get used to it, basically.
The same company that makes those $100 turbos on eBay. I got you.
Yeah, exactly.
So are you still competing then?
I am not competing anymore. I haven't competed since 2013.
Okay, I was gonna say.
So, yeah, because the orange 240 that I actually have, that one, we built that one after the Skyline. Because the Skyline, I just couldn't get used to it. I didn't have enough seat time. Shifting with the left hand just felt kind of foreign. So we switched over to the 240, and immediately after that, the first event, I wrecked it. There's a video on YouTube where I battled Ian Fournier. So, yeah. So I battled him, and then I ended up crashing it. And I was like, you know what? I'm broke. I'm done. I can't keep putting money into the car. So I just sold it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. You know what? That happens. I mean, we've all been there.
Oh yeah. I've been there. So what are your thoughts on competing then? Like, as far as like, what's your overall impression of it? You know what I mean? Because everyone has their either their negative or their positives or whatever about competing in that whole like formula or like that whole style of drifting. So what do you think of it?
To me, I think it's kind of there's pros and cons to it. The pros to it is you get to compete with top level guys who are really hungry to get podium, trying to get their license and everything. But the con is, like, if you don't have the money for it, it's very hard to make it to every round or get the right tire that you want or you need. And, if you hit something or somebody hits you, then it's like all that money comes out of your pocket, and finding sponsors wasn't that easy. So it's definitely an expensive sport. I mean, think about it. For every pair of tire, you're talking about like $200.
Right.
And that's gone in like 3 rounds.
Yep.
Like 3 laps. So
yep, it was the
especially
same
with
for
the
me.
power level that everybody's running now.
Well, so was it any better when you were running the A86 because it's such a small car and light chassis? Were you finding the tires last a little longer?
No, actually, they still lose their tires pretty quick just because we're spinning them in 3rd gear, and the ratio that we had in the rear diff, which was a silica super rear, was pretty high too. So it was like, I mean, the torque was there, but the tires we were running were only like 16s or 15s, sometimes even 14s. So you just overspin them, and they don't ever last.
95 mile an hour rear wheel speed.
Yeah. Well, and you come into the problem. What he just said is you got all these guys that are hunting, they're fighting for that win. And so like, it's inevitable that even if you start out with like low horsepower, not a lot of traction, like small tires, you're gonna push for more. Like you have to, because they're pushing you to do that. So if you don't do that, then what's the point?
Yeah, like when I first went up to Evergreen to compete, I thought I was pretty quick until I started chasing people. One of the person that kind of gave me confidence to kind of chase after them and, realize I was a little bit slow was Corey Keyser. And he had a V8 LS, he had an LS1 FC back then. And, he was quick. So I was able to try to like keep up with him and kind of realize that my entry speed were a little bit slower than I needed to be.
Yeah. Hey, speaking of, Jim, before we get too ahead of ourselves here, what are you up to these days? You're down in Sacramento, right?
Yes, I'm down in Sacramento. I have a shop with my brother, and we just run general mechanic, and I kind of do my own little performance stuff on the side. So, like, I just built a little 500 horsepower Civic sedan that I'm trying to use as a daily, but like you guys were saying in the intro, California and its EPA, and they'll get you for anything. Yeah.
I think that's, and I know we're talking drifting here, but I think that's one of the reasons why I would like to do an all-wheel drive Civic at some point. It's because you can really put that power down. It's okay to have a 400 horsepower K series in your Civic if it's all-wheel drive, because you're still running 11s with it.
Right, exactly, and that's what I'm gonna be doing right now. I'm I'm setting it up for all-wheel drive right now. So I got the CRV transmission in there.
Nice.
My man.
I was just going to ask that. I was just going to ask.
Yeah, it reminded me of you, Andy, because you used to chase us down with your all-wheel drive Mazda and film us and everything. So I remember those days.
Yeah, dude.
That car is still around. One of my buddies has it now, so it'll be coming back one of these days.
Yeah,
I actually told Andy about a Mazda that I saw down here in near the Bay Area. I hit up Andy about it, see if he was interested in it.
Yeah, that 323 GTX.
Yep, exactly.
I'll tell you what, since we're talking to you and you were kind of the pioneer of that obscure VQ swap, I think it would be fun if a person could, and by the way, you can't, I'm just going to let you know that right now without a lot of work, but if you can make a rear-wheel drive version of one of those 323 GTXs and go and slide that at Pat's Acres, oh man, you would turn some heads.
I actually think that would be pretty cool. My brother, he's been seeing me drift a lot and doing like these crazy swaps, so he's actually, hey, I got a FX16, those front-wheel drive Corollas.
Heck yeah.
He's like, let's throw a K24 in it, but make it rear-wheel drive.
Yeah, there you go.
That's what I'm talking
we
about.
bought a Donor 240SX for $100. It's got everything in there except for engine and transmission. So we'll probably just hack that up and kind of
nice
Frankenstein something.
I love that, dude. I was going to say you could probably do a Miata as well, but a 240, hey, perfect.
Yeah,
I think that's like one of my favorite parts about like where we're at now with all of this drifting stuff is like all of us, you, me, and a lot of us, we're old enough now. We've been doing it long enough where we're kind of not necessarily moving on in life, but we're kind of pursuing other passions and whatnot. You have a shop, and that's kind of the way I'm going too. And so like you're getting so many more like swaps and like crazy builds and just like, things that you've been thinking about for years. You're like, well, we got the time and I'm not competing, so I might as well build this, and it's cool to really cool to see all those cars coming out now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's you kind of like learn from all the stuff that you go through. So like, I mean, there's a lot of trial and error, but and we got YouTube nowadays. You can learn pretty much anything through YouTube, and
YouTube
I
certified,
think my
baby.
biggest yeah, exactly. My biggest drawback is probably wiring. I'm slightly color confused. So yeah, so I mean, I actually did my own wiring in the Civic, and it turned out perfect. So that gave me a little bit more confidence. But Jim, I mean, to tackle a big job, I don't know.
Jim, I remember wiring in the Haltech in my Protege that you were just talking about, and things were not working out right. And I kept looking at the wires and looking at the wires, and finally I snipped a piece off because it was under the hood of the car already. And I held it up, and it was this poop brown wire with this teeny tiny black line, and I'm just like, oh, you son of a bitch. You've been hiding from me this whole time.
Yeah.
Yeah, the wiring, man. Okay, so what I wanted to ask you is, how is California treating the motorsports industry these days? And even though, it sounds like things are going to start lifting for this whole COVID thing, which I'm very excited about. But what is it looking like for drifting in California? Are you still having some grassroots events? Has it really gone just big mainstream? Is there anybody running parking lot events anymore?
Parking lot events, they do in Stockton. They used to hold, I believe, Golden Gate Drift down there in Stockton, but that's kind of died down. There's a cool guy named Robert, and he runs some Stockton, like fun little series to just drive around in the parking lot. But the whole NorCal scene's kind of died off. They have Sonoma Drift, which they usually drift like every Wednesday night. I haven't been there. I've gone to Winter Jam, but then you got Thunderhill, which is like about 2 hours north of Sacramento, and they hold some events there too. I'm just not as active as I used to be anymore.
Sure.
And then like the scene in Southern California is probably bigger, I want to say, because they got Top Drift down there. And from what I hear is like each Pro-Am event they have about 100 to 150 drivers show up.
Dang.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah.
So you still have some grassroots stuff going on down there?
Yeah, we got some here and there. Usually nowadays I find myself just attending private events that they like, hold in like big skid pads or something like that, or we'll just drive down what was it, Spring Willow and just or Willow Springs, one of those, and we'll just rent it out or something like that. So.
Sure. We were just talking about that the other day, about how the one thing kind of missing in Oregon is that we really don't have a big parking lot or a skid pad that gets used regularly.
Right. And I remember they used to do that too. They did it at Portland Meadows. Mm-hmm. I mean, the ground there is kind of messed up, but they used to do it back there. That was like 2005, 2006 or something like that. And they just kind of stopped doing it there. And then we had some parking lot drifting when they were doing, what was that, 868 or something like that? I don't know if you guys remember that.
686 Drift Union, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
you're talking about Slater at PIR or?
Well, yeah. I mean,
yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I wasn't going to bring up any names, but Ryan's just
whatever, I'll drop the names.
yeah, you're talking
good.
about that guy.
yeah, that whole situation.
And I was watching the podcast. You guys are talking about how park drift started and everything. I mean, it had to start off with somebody. Somebody had to go in there and
Oh yeah, someone had to pave the way. Someone had to open the door.
Yeah, exactly.
So I gotta ask.
I think the last time go ahead.
Well, I'm a little curious now. I mean, now that you've seen an episode or two of Clutch Kick Radio, I mean, did you feel any nostalgia hearing all those old stories?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely. I remember how Ryan was talking about how, like, you got to do the little trial. You got to go and do donuts and the figure eights just to get qualified to go to
that
park.
was so crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was just like, I remember back then, that was just one of the craziest things I could have ever thought that I'd be doing. Like, I never thought that I'd be, like, judged by all these people driving my car like this. Like, you know what I mean? It's just not something you ever anticipate.
People that were probably drifting a lot less time.
Guys
less
that probably knew less than we did, and they're over there judging us like, do good.
Yeah, and then there were guys who couldn't afford to go to those events. I mean, they weren't that much, but they still couldn't really afford to go out there, couldn't afford that much tires. So, like, we used to do street drifting in Portland. We used to go to, like, the terminals back in the days and just go out there and drift where all those semi-trucks are at. I mean,
I remember.
But ever since...
Yeah, allegedly you used to do that. People theorized that someone was doing that. I don't know, who it was, but I remember it was on a closed course in Mexico. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Down in like T5 terminal, Mexico, somewhere down there.
Yes, exactly. Allegedly.
That ice pad that's over there in Mexico somewhere.
Yeah. And even back then, I mean, this whole automotive kind of started because I used to like hang out with guys with the Hondas, and we used to go street racing in Mexico. And, that's kind of what started this whole, like, automotive thing for me.
What did get you into the 240 in the first place?
I'm trying to think. Maybe I saw some Drift King videos or something like that. Because my first car was actually a Corolla A86. And, I used to drive by this guy's house that lived down the street from me, an older guy. And he had a super clean Corolla. And I drive by every time I see him out in the front, I'd be like, hey, you want to sell that? He'd be like, no, this is my baby. I was like, all right, drive by. I was driving in like an 87 Integra or something like that. And they look like a Corolla too, which is kind of funny, but yeah. And then like one day I drive by and I see the front end all smashed up. I was like, oh crap. I was like, so I see him in the front and I was like, hey, you want to sell it? He's like, actually I do. So I bought it for $500 off the guy, and he said it wasn't running. That'd be nice to get a Corolla nowadays for $500.
That's exactly.
Yeah, so it was a GTS too, and it was just mainly core support and headlight damage. He said the car wouldn't start anymore, so I had a buddy go and look at it with me, and he's like, "Oh yeah, it's gonna start for sure." So we towed it down the street back to my house, and he takes off the intake off of it and started right off. And what happened was the core support had pinched the intake closed. So it wasn't getting in air.
Makes sense.
Yeah, so I learned to drift on that car basically
Nice.
in Mexico.
Yeah. The T5 terminal in Mexico.
Yeah.
Did you do anything to that car, or did you just run it until it was time to upgrade?
The Corolla, I just did. I did drop springs, and then I had it came factory with LSD, and I blew that one somehow. I blew that one, so I ended up putting an SR5 one in there and just welding the diff and just kind of get the feels for it from that one. And then one night coming back from Gresham, I was doing some skids and I was like, oh crap, I actually linked that. So I was like, let's go back the next day and try it, but let's put it on film. So I went back with a couple of buddies and they filmed it, and then I ended up crashing it. And the record button wasn't on.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, so that's even worse. But yeah, I ended up selling that thing. Actually made a little bit of money. I sold it for like $900
Nice.
or something like that.
Wow.
And then just that was back when I was like 18, 19, something like that. So
That's awesome.
and I'm an old man now, so
It's so weird that a car can have a little bit of almost like a providence after, someone else has drifted it. Because you're looking at it and you're thinking, well, this thing's clapped out. I've been rodding it like crazy for years. But somebody else looking at it going, oh, he was able to drift it, so I should be able to do too.
Yeah.
And this was before doing those fiberglass white fenders. So if I had some fiberglass white fenders, that would actually fix the problem. But yeah.
But you sold
So
that.
it basically just it took out the back quarter panel, but the trunk lid was still perfect. And if I had just slapped on a wide body on it, it would have looked perfect.
Oh, yeah, just cut out those quarter panels. So you went from there, you wrecked that, and then was that your leap into the 240?
Yep, exactly. I found a right-hand drive converted SR car in Hillsboro, and I bought off that guy. And I was 19 years old. I was excited. I had a little bit of cash, and I was like, I'm just gonna go buy it. My brother's like, I don't know, man. The car looks kind of clapped out too. It was primer black. It was primer black and everything. So I ended up buying it, and then like after kind of like taking out the floor, the carpets and stuff, you could kind of see where the guy had just chopped right straight through the car and just welded the front clip on.
Whoa.
Yeah. So if I had wrecked that thing probably just split in half.
That's probably about how my S13 is at this point. That thing was the same way. I bought that thing as a shell for like $150, and it totally, you could tell that it was just like a polished turd at that point.
I'm really glad you brought that up because I was thinking it, but I didn't want to say it.
Oh, it's okay. It's okay. Yeah, I still have that car. Good decision or bad decision, I don't know, but I do. But it's kind of funny because that thing was the same way. I mean, everyone, there's just like probably 8 or 9 people seen that car and they're like, why did you buy this? I would not even spend $150. And I'm like, what do you mean? It rolls down you can push it down the street. That's worth $150, right? I mean, and now I still have the car. It's going to be my rental drift car here one of these days. So, I mean, it ended up working out, right?
Jim, worth it or no?
$150 for a rolling shell? Oh yeah, definitely.
Oh yeah.
All right. The man says so.
But I mean, let's be real though. I sold the rear bumper for $100. So.
Oh, there you go. You're $50 into it.
Yep.
I mean, you can't even find a steering rack for $150 now.
Right. If you can even find one.
Ooh, which reminds me.
If you can even find one.
I wanted to ask you before we let you go, what do you think is going to be the future of drift cars? Like we've speculated on this a couple times now, but what would you kind of?
What's your go-to?
Yeah, what's your go-to if someone was coming to you and saying, "I want to get into drifting right now, and I wanted to do it on the cheap"?
Okay, so I have the perfect story for that. I was talking to Ryan a little bit about it too. I just bought a 2008 350Z, and it comes with the 3.5 HR motor, and that makes about 300 wheels. Just factory the way it is. And the kid had hydroplaned into a pole and cracked the windshield and the top roof a little bit. So I took it to a body shop, $600, just down the street. The guy straightened it out, primered it, put a glass on it for $160. So I'm about $2,700 into it now, and I just welded the diff. I made a little diff brace because 350Z are known to have like bad bushings for them.
Right.
So I just did that, and I was kind of skidding it out in my front parking lot here at the shop, and it handles perfectly. And
Nice.
you can't even find a clapped out 240 nowadays for $3,000.
No, not a chance. You're $5,000 into a driftable 240.
Yeah, you're talking about
Easy.
maybe like 140 horsepower to the wheels.
Yep.
Compared to 300.
Yep.
Yeah, and you're 2,700 into it.
Yep. It's awesome.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
And it's funny. I think that a lot of people don't realize, like, you could get, like, even if you paid someone to fix some of these cars, if you're just going for a drift car, you could go get an auction car for like $1,000. Like, I mean, even if you're talking like my C5, if you went and bought that car for $1,000 with everything in it running, and then you paid someone to make that thing straight enough again to drift, like to just have a drift car, like you're still probably $5,000 into a car. I mean, you have the whole thing. You wouldn't even have to put a front end on it if you didn't want to.
Yeah. You can make situation. like your own little what do they call them now? Like shark cart or whatever they call them.
Exactly.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
you can just build something like that, I mean, just put a little bit of some bash bars on it and go rip and have fun.
Right? Just a new style drift missile.
I think I know somebody that can build bash bars for you pretty quickly too.
Yeah, that C5's been an adventure.
Hey, Jim, man, it's so good to talk to you, dude. It's been so many years. I hope we get to catch up again real soon.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Can you just let people know where they can find, like, your shop, what you have going on?
Yeah, so definitely. I'm in Sacramento, South Sac. I'm on Franklin and 47th. If you want to come by, get a little bit of fabrication done, engine swap, tranny swap, or even just simple stuff like you want to weld your diff or something like that, or coilover install, I'm down for it. I kind of get burnt out on working on regular cars, so sometimes I like to do a little performance stuff here and there.
Yeah, for sure. I'm the same way.
Heck yeah. So anybody watching this, if you are in the Sac area or within driving distance, I mean, come and check them out. What's your shop called?
Stellar Automotive.
Stellar Automotive. Awesome. We're gonna do you have like a Facebook or website for your shop?
Yeah, I do.
We're gonna go ahead.
Stellar Auto. Okay.
Yeah, we're gonna link that underneath so that people can know where to reach out to you. Okay, my friend.
Okay, sounds good, man. It was nice talking to you guys.
Yeah, it's good talking to you, man.
A long time.
Great talking to you, brother. You take care.
Have a good one.
Hopefully, I'll see you guys at Park one of these days.
Oh yeah, I'm hoping that I can come down to Winter Jam here in the near future, either this year or next year. I've been trying for a while, but my car's always broken in the wintertime.
Yeah, just make sure you bring like.
Oh, and of course we lose him.
Oh, Skype. Thanks for nothing.
Of course you bring.
Yeah.
There he is.
Oh, there he is. You're back.
We lost you. What'd you say?
No, I was saying bring some rain clothes so that like hoodies and stuff like that.
Yeah, the torrential downpours.
Definitely, that's the one reason why I bought an enclosed trailer, just so I could camp in there.
Yeah, I've got a 32-foot U-Haul box van that I have two 8-foot construction ramps. Ramp my car right into the back of it. It's pretty sweet.
Oh, kind of like that old RX-7 that used to go to Hoodoo.
Yep, yep. Kind of the same thing, but yeah.
Yeah, Ryan's going to enjoy getting 9 miles to the gallon the whole way down and back.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, exactly. That's actually what my truck got. I have a 2008 Denali Sierra, and towing my trailer up to Oregon, that I got about 8 miles to a gallon.
It seems it's so hard because it seems like no matter what route you go, it is just kind of expensive. You're either going to pay in the gas or you're going to pay in the upfront cost of the vehicle, or like one way or another. It's like either way you're paying for it.
Yep.
Yeah. So if anybody has like a nice diesel they want to sell me, hit me up. I'll trade you cars and trucks.
We'll get that word out. Yeah. All right, Jim. Hey, thanks so much, man. Great to talk to you.
Have a good one.
All right. Thanks, guys. Take care.
That was very cool. Very cool.
Yeah, definitely. I love getting everyone's insight on drifting and definitely reminiscing about the old days. I still think that's probably one of my favorite things to do. And I'll tell you what, it's been really, really crazy. The last, couple weeks, I've really been digging through old videos, having, Jim on especially, digging way back 8, 9, 10 years in videos and watching some of that. Man, just all the memories. It's crazy.
It's wild, really, really wild.
Just how much stuff happened and how many things people probably don't even realize. I mean, man, just so much time at the track. Because I think there for the first, I know for the first 2 years, while when Slater ran it and when us at Loki Motorsports ran it, and then for probably at least 2 or 3 years after that, I didn't miss a single event. I was pretty much known for hitting every event every month, and yeah, it's crazy to see all the progression of all the people. I mean, I know guys we're going to have on this show later. I mean, I remember Cameron Moore's first day at the track. I remember watching him do his audition. Same with Travis Reeder and some of those guys. They just, and now look at where they are, and going from a stock SC300, pretty much stock suspension, throwing it around. Now it's full blown FD,
It's crazy, man. And that's one of the reasons why I'm really, really glad that we were able to talk to Jim, because talking to him is just this walk down memory lane,
Oh, yeah, it definitely is.
And producer Nick, do we have any comments coming into the social media that we need to take a look at? Oh, Kyle Pollard says, OG Jim, miss ya. Johnny Mua says, I missed it. Scroll up a little bit. Oh, wow. He spent $600 on an 89 FC. Wow.
Oh, that would be nice. I don't think I've seen one that cheap since
ever.
Yeah, maybe since the first day I started drifting and got into it, like, 9-10 years ago, maybe.
You know that I had a little white, I think it was a 1988 FCRX7.
Really?
Yeah, it was just a base model. It was a 4-lug, the whole 9 yards. It had a vacuum leak where the ports, I don't know. I'm not a rotary guy, so I don't know exactly how all that works. But apparently there are certain ports that open at a higher RPM or under more load in the intake runner. Mazda really liked to do stuff like that, and there was a vacuum leak, so sometimes they'd open, sometimes they wouldn't, and sometimes it would really feel like it rips through second gear, and then I'd shift into third and it'd be ripping, and then all of a sudden it would just fall flat on its face at 4,000 RPM, and I was like, what is going on here?
You're like, this is no fun.
But it was during a time when I couldn't have more than 2 cars at our house, and we had like 4, and my landlord was finally like, hey, I've been giving you some leeway, but this is too much. So I sold that RX-7 off.
Yeah, I've been pretty fortunate so far, the last, 10 years, pretty much since I've started drifting, I've had at least somewhere to store cars, and I've had multiple cars, but I've kind of kept it that way because I know myself well enough that I can't go without having at least one car sitting around as a project. I mean, let's be real here.
Of course.
You got to have something to look at and tell yourself you should go work on that, but not like I don't have enough work with all the other cars that I do, but there's always projects around.
It's hard not to have a project when you're the type of people like you and I are.
It is, especially when you find a good deal. I know I sit here and scroll the deals in Facebook all the time, even though I don't have money to spend on another project and I'm just finishing my cars, but you still got to watch, you still got to look and dream, I guess, right?
Well, absolutely. I was just looking today. I sent you a couple of listings where I was like, hey, this dude has 2 wrecked cars and 3 motors, and one of them has these parts, another one has these parts, and I'm actually dumb enough to sit here and consider it.
Once again, the Mustangs.
Well,
they're so cheap.
We won't go into the whole Mustang thing. Hey, before we go though, I did want to look at a couple of the videos that we have up. Folks on audio, I will give you a warning. This sounds horrible. So,
headphone users beware.
Yes, headphone users beware. What do you want to start with? Probably actually, let's see that chase video of me. Oh no, wait. Sorry.
Start with the Hoodoo one. That's the
go back one more.
Yep, that one.
Yep, that one right there.
And this is what he was talking about right here. This is Hoodoo. He was saying you stick it in third gear and just run the whole track. And this is definitely back when they were the only ones out there with an angle kit, and it definitely showed. I remember because I didn't really know what an angle kit was or how it all worked or whatever at that time, but I remember hearing, like, through the crowds, because none of us really knew each other that well, so we were all kind of in our little teams and our groups. But I remember hearing that it had knuckles, and it was like, well, yeah. I mean, he was throwing way more smoke and way more angle than everyone else.
Oh, yeah. And like I said, you kind of have to when you're running that kind of rear wheel speed.
Oh, yeah, you would have to, especially with that thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, go ahead and hit play for us, producer Nick. Hear no audio from it, but I'll tell you right now, for the podcast listeners,
this is actually just an autocross run as well.
Oh, it is just not.
Yeah, so this is not drifting. I realized after I sent this that this is running their autocross course, and it's funny because when I watch the cars run through the course, I like vaguely remember like that course, and like when I did, I was like, oh yeah, that was definitely the autocross course, and I remember that, and I remember standing over here. It's crazy, just the little flashbacks.
Yeah, let's go ahead and there we go. Listen to that thing.
Yes, first VQ in the Northwest.
And it's not the hatchback AE86. Everybody always, or at least me, I see that in my head whenever anybody talks about the old Corollas.
Oh, I feel like that too.
Yeah.
I don't even remember that there's a coupe.
Yeah, but this is the coupe version, which is going to have a stiffer chassis and arguably be better for pretty much all motorsports.
Yeah, I feel like they would have been slightly better off with the hatch, though, because they probably would have had a little more rear weight, which I imagine the VQ in the front of that thing makes it a little on the front heavy side.
That could be, and then we're skipping way ahead in time. This is actually the SV Performance R32.
This is 2012.
Mm-hmm.
So this is about a year, maybe two.
And this is me chasing with the Protege, so you're going to hear two different motors. But this one, fortunately, had an exhaust on
I
it.
remember. Okay, so I was going to mention something about this video. If you notice, I remember specifically this situation when this was going on, that he did not have an e-brake. They were having trouble with their inline hydro at that time. And this is a really good example of how hard part can be without an e-brake.
Everything he's doing is with clutch kicks.
Yep, clutch kicks and just foot brake.
I think that honestly makes it more impressive for me, though, because that first corner, there was a little bit of like a skitter, like we're having a hard time breaking it loose.
Yep.
But after that, I mean, he's throwing it around, he's smoking the tires out.
Yep.
This is a great run, and look at that transition that he's going into. He goes from the left hand to the right hand, and it really was not a problem seeming for him, and all just controlling it with clutch kicks. It's really impressive.
And at this point in time, they definitely were not the only ones with angle mods, but they were still probably only about half. I would say half the cars on the track, if even that many, had angle mods at this time. And so that definitely helps because you can use the angle to slow yourself down, whereas when you're in a car with no angle and no e-brake, makes it really hard to stay sideways and slow down on parks track, especially in some of the tight, close corners,
Well, and that instant torque of the V6.
Oh, yeah.
That's one thing that's going to really help you out there. I mean, clutch kicking is great, but if you've got like a big turbo SR and you're completely out of boost, what are you going to do?
Yeah, that is what it is.
Yeah. So what do we got here?
So this is Turbo VQ. This is when he was competing in Pro-Am. This is runs at Evergreen on the 5/8 bank.
That bank is so weird, dude.
It is, and I believe I'm not sure. Well, let's see this video. See which one this is.
The sound is still a little bit.
Yeah, it's funny because it's not as. I don't know what it is about those motors, and I was going to mention that, but he came on the call right when I was going to say that. Is even the Turbo VQ, like it's not as loud and obnoxious, but it still just has a weird sound. I don't know what it is, but they have an odd sound to them.
They do. They
just don't sound like anything else.
I mean, you can arguably say that about like a VR6 motor as well.
Well, yeah.
Except for those sound amazing. They have this alluring sound to them.
I was going to say, yeah, it's not quite the same, but...
No. Well, it's the same and then it's a unique sound.
Yeah.
Wow, he is really crushing it here. I mean, look at him slide right up on that bank. That's really impressive. considering you've been on this same bank before.
No, I've never actually been on the 5/8. I was only on the 3/8.
Oh, on the 3/8.
Yeah.
But still, considering you've been on a bank, I mean, what are you feeling emotionally when you see this video? Like, is there, because it kind of scares me, to be honest with you.
Oh, it scares me too, because I know that that's one thing that makes competing in Pro-Am so hard, is that it's such a steep learning curve. I feel, because you really go out there and you don't have a lot of time to, with the amount of money it takes to go up there, it's really hard to go up there to get a lot of practice being 4 hours away. And so, like, I think I went and competed 4 or 5 rounds total in like the 3 or 4 years that I did it. And every single round, it was just like this huge step of a learning curve. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And so it's like, you drove all that way and spent all that money. Okay, we learned that. Now we go home. We adjust for the next time. Then you go and you drive all that way again. You learn this. And so, like, I know that I was just getting to a point where my car was feeling decent on the 3/8 bank. So I can't imagine what it would have felt like throwing it at the 5/8. And that's actually why I didn't throw it at the 5/8, because I didn't want to be like everyone else and just throw it straight into the wall, because I went from... let's see. The first round we showed up, I blew out 2 shocks, 2 front shocks, and my power steering blew out.
I remember that, yeah.
And so we fixed all of that. Then we went to the next round, and I was having more issues, and we weren't quite sure why. My car was more or less on or off throttle, so I don't know what it would have did on the 5/8 bank, because I was right in that 450 horse range, but the suspension was way too much for what it had. Way too much bite for what it was. I think that a lot of the problem was I wasn't running a rear sway bar, because I think that helps keep you, from what I've heard personally, that helps keep you up on the bank.
Right.
And I was not running a rear sway bar, and I think that's one of the big problems that I ran into, is that I basically only ran my car at park up until Evergreen. So the difference between the track surfaces is huge. I mean, I don't run a rear sway bar at park, and I have my car set up pretty much to kill, and it keeps up with most cars, and not a lot of people could run away from me. But then you go up to Evergreen, and it's like the grip was way too much, and we just weren't able to dial it back.
Right.
So
having that adjustable suspension is really important, and
we just didn't really know what we were doing, to be honest. I mean, to be more than to be, yeah, I mean, that's really what it was. We hadn't figured it all out, and we hadn't, come to the point where we'd learned that we should put a rear sway bar on, and that I should run a stiffer rear spring rate and all of that, which is, it's all stuff that I've adjusted now on the S14. And I'll tell you what, the S14 feels really, really good. It's still getting there. There's still some adjustments to make. I'm still trying to kind of figure it out where I want it to be, but it's starting to feel really good.
And you have that flexibility to be able to go to different tracks.
Exactly. And I learned, and I think more than that, I think it's just that I learned what that suspension setup does. And so now I know what that does. I know what it did before that. And now I know what it's doing now with my current setup. And so I think I have a decent baseline to kind of, figure out where I like my car to run. And sure. I like my setups a little different than everyone else. I feel like my cars usually run a little looser than other people's. As far as like the front end goes, I feel like my front end tends to float and skid a little bit more than other people like. And so it just changes that. So it's just a big changing in all the suspension over from Matt owning it to me owning it. So, because the way we drive is completely different.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you've talked about that already, where if he gets a tire that didn't have the same grip as what he was used to, he just didn't like driving it. So.
Yeah.
And what do we have pulled up here? Jim leading, Corey Keyser.
And this is a guy he was talking about that gave him that perspective of, my car and my driving is not that fast. This is that guy that he was talking about.
I'm sure he did a fine job leading. Let's see it. Nice transition, right up on the wall. Lots of angle. Not as much smoke as I feel like we're used to seeing now.
Yeah, this is still, I feel like, a little bit earlier in the days of there's not as much angle. because angle tire speed equals smoke. So
Right.
and this car is still set up on just their modified knuckles. It's not like they're running like some Driftworks or PBM or some crazy knuckle setup. I'm pretty sure that R32 Skyline was just set up on their SV Performance modded knuckles. So
Still, I mean, it was really getting some work done. I mean, it's pretty obvious that Jim really, really knows what he's doing behind the wheel.
I'm totally impressed with what all those guys have done, for sure.
Yeah. And hey, man, I'm impressed with what you're doing here, by the way.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you guys for checking this show out. We've had quite a few people in and out. We appreciate that. And we appreciate Jim coming on. Like, it was a ton of fun talking to him.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I love listening to those guys talk about the old days.
I'm sure when we leave here, you and I are going to be all nostalgic about all the old days.
Oh, yeah, usually. That's what happens after every episode.
That's right. Well, hey, my friend, let's go ahead and let this thing out. So I appreciate you being here. Everybody out there, thank you for tuning in. Thanks for telling a friend. Make sure you're spreading the love around. This is a new show. We want to make sure that it's getting around to as many people as we can get it to. So please do help us with that endeavor. And Ryan?
Go check us out on the Instagram at Clutch Kick Radio. Go check us out at Facebook at Clutch Kick Radio.
Check us out on Twitch. Boost Booze BBQ is where we're having all those episodes right now. And I think we'll see you guys next week.